Hey there, let's get into Baicang's hit. You don't really need to read it all, there's a lot of text, but most of it we don't really need to know. TLDR, he generates power words. Basically one is called the power word, the other one is called the silence word, yada yada. You generate them passively just by doing his rotation, so you don't need to think about them. Anyways, the only thing that's worth doing is holding right click, release, hold right click again to cancel, animation cancel his basic attacks, as you can see on the screen. If you don't do this, it's not worth playing at all, as his basic attacks are really worthless. That's all you need to know for his basic attack. Then we have his skill. The only thing you need to know about his skill is after you dodge, it's gonna light up red, and you need to press his skill for an AoE attack. Make sure you only press it after a dodge, as he has two different AoE red attacks. Just press it after the dodge, and that's all you need to know. Then for his ult, it's basically just increases his multipliers in his ult, so he does a lot more damage, and it gives him an execute. Monsters get executed when they have 10% HP left, and bosses get executed when they have 5% HP left. And he also regenerates HP in his ult. When you use basic attack, he uses HP. So you can regenerate it in ult to keep your HP above 50%. Then we have his support skill, which is just one instance of damage, that's all you need to know. Then we have his first passive, which basically just refreshes the scorch duration, and that's all it does. The description is completely wrong from testing, unless something else comes out from our testing. It is just refreshing the scorch duration and nothing else, which is debatable how useful that is. Then his next passive is just 20% increased attack to himself. Everything else doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, that's the only thing worth in his passive, which is 20% attack. Then we have his life skill, which is just increasing traffic, and that's all there is to say about it. Nothing more to say. Then we have his build, which is gonna be twin butterflies, which is gonna be his set bonus. It increases incantation damage and increases attack whenever you deal incantation damage. That is all there is to know about the set. Then his stats. For his substats, we're gonna want double crit, will damage percentage, and attack percentage. Those are gonna be your 4 substats. For main stats, incantation damage is recommended, but if you can hit your crit threshold, you can run a crit main stat. For his weapon, it's a crit substat with a crit damage passive, which increases your crit damage by 12% every time you take damage, so every time you auto attack. And then he has an R ability on his weapon, which just consumes 5% of your current HP to summon a plant that does damage, so you can get 1 stack from the weapon easily. That is all you need to know about the weapons and his build. So let's get into the awakenings. His first awakening is just gonna increase skill damage and reduce skill damage cooldown. You don't really need to know how this is triggered, just know that that's what it does, and it's mostly in his ult. Then we have his second passive, which is gonna be just an attack percentage passive that stacks up to 4 times every 10 seconds. You can't get all the 4 stacks at default, but we'll get into that later. You'll need his C3 ability, which increases the power word generation limit to 4. Then we have his C4, which is just extra HP in ult, 5% more if you're struggling to survive. Then we have his C5, which just increases the ult duration from 10 seconds to 16 seconds. Then we have the C6, which increases crit rate by 30% in his ult. My recommended is C6, C1, then C2, then C3 to increase the effect of C2, so you get more attack percentage by having more stacks. Then it's gonna be C5 for the extra ult duration, and then C4 for the extra HP. You can do C4 earlier if you struggle to survive. The only thing you need to know about his C6 resonance effect is that it gives his team 20% attack and gives them the execution buff so he doesn't have to execute himself. Let's get into the gifts. The most bang for your buck is gonna be the energy meal, which is 100 points. The next most bang for your buck is gonna be the sunflower at 200 points. And if you don't care about saving funds or how fast, and only care about how fast you level up his bond level, you can get the Giga Fluffs, that's 400 points for him. But Sunflower is your best option for building fast and spending less funds, and Energy Meal if you only care about how much funds you spend. Now let's get into his team comps. The first one is gonna be by Jiuyan, Chiz, and Hanel. I showed this rotation in my Chiz video. I will pull that up after this so you can see how the rotation works. It's basically just Hanel to buff Bai and then Chiz and Jiuyan for Blossom, while quick swapping will Bai, since there isn't many quick swap options for Bai outside of Daffodil currently. And this leaves you with double main DPSs or sub DPSs, which increases the damage a lot. We also have a Sakiri mint option. Why we put mint here instead of Jiuyan is because you don't want to have two groupers on one team. You will want your Jiuyan on the other team, of course. The rotation is going to be exactly the same as the other rotation. You just slot in Sakiri rotation where Jiuyan rotation is. And for mint, you just swap to her whenever she has ult or blossom, and you press her ult and then swap off. She's just there for the blossom proc, that's all. Not much to say about this team comp. Then we have Baicang, Sakiri, either Hanel or Fordia, either one works, and then Lacrimosa or Daffodil here. Both works. We are not sure how good Lacrimosa is yet. We'll get into that in the Lacrimosa guide video. But you can slot in Daffodil here. And then you have Fordia or Hanel to proc the esper cycle to increase the value of Daffodil. Daffodil isn't really worth much without those, as you want the esper cycles Discord to increase the break damage. You also have an option with Adler, where you're gonna want Baicang, Sakiri, Adler, Daffodil, or Lacrimosa. This is gonna be a dot team based on keeping as many dots on the target as possible for Sakiri passive to do more damage overall with Scorch. That's all there is to say about that, really. Those are his best team comps. Let's get into rotation. First we're gonna start with Hanel Q, E, and then Sakiri. Sakiri E before Q on AoE floors, Q on mob on bosses first. Then we swap into Adler, which should be Daffodil here. And then we do Daffodil QE into Bai Q. If you have Esper Cycle, you'll swap into Daffodil right away. If you don't have Esper Cycle, you'll just ult straight away with Bai, and then you'll dodge cancel attack with Bai until his ult runs out. Then swap to Hanel, Sakiri, and then Daffodil, and then back into Bai. And while you're building Esper Cycle on Bai, you're gonna quick swap to Daffodil whenever you need to parry or whenever her skill is up. You're gonna try and swap as much as you can. That is gonna be everything. Now the Chiz rotation. Let's get into the next rotation with Baicang. First you start with Jiuyan Q and then Jiuyan E. Then we're gonna go into Chiz so you can get her ult started, because that's our most burst damage in this comp. So we can start getting energy for the next ult right away. After that you're gonna swap into Baicang. You're gonna use his ult, his skills, and then you're gonna hold right click, let go, hold right click, let go, and do that to animation cancel his attack. After his ult is almost out, you're gonna swap into Chiz, use her 3 skills, swap into Baicang, then swap into Jiuyan to group the mobs back up, swap into Chiz to use his skills, swap into Baicang, do 4 attacks, swap into Chiz, do his skills, swap into Baicang, use the 4 attacks, swap into Jiuyan to use his skills, swap into Chiz to use her attacks. If I ult this up, you should use Jiuyan E whenever you have Chiz ult up, so you can group them before Chiz ult, as that's the big burst in your combo. And then you're just gonna quick swap between Chiz and Baicang every time, 4 to 5 attacks on Baicang, then into Chiz to use her E, then back to Baicang, then into Chiz, and that's gonna be the rotation. You're just gonna quick swap like that. Just try and feel it out. It's pretty hard to write a full rotation guide on this, as you basically just have to quick swap all the time. That is everything for this video. Hope to see you again.